Good morning. We're so glad everyone is joining us today on this beautiful Friday. We finally made it through all of the snow and the cold weather, I hope. I know here in Billings, we were, a couple days ago, 24 below. So happy to be above board now and hope you're all warm and are enjoying the day wherever you are. Today, we are super lucky to have Stacy Maloney with us. If you were lucky to catch her last year, she was at Summer Institute. And then also we had, and then the Virtual Summer Institute. That's how we did it last year, right, Stacy?
Mhm. Yep.
And so that was such a popular training. We decided to bring it back in a condensed version. So um, it's going to kind of feel a little fast and furious, but hopefully we're going to take time so that you'll learn some great new skills and you're going to want to have this training again next year, which is something we can totally do. All right, so with that, I'm going to hand you over to Stacy.
Great. Thank you so much, Desiree. As you're joining, I know we have a lot of people who are kind of getting into the room. Go ahead and you can throw in where you're calling in from today and kind of on that scale of 1 to 7, your comfort level and love for Excel. Um, so let's get on with it here. Uh, Desiree and I talked about like a really good title for this course, Making Friends with Excel. One of my passions is helping people feel comfortable with any tools and anything that they're working in. And so this is going to be a bit of a fast and furious training this morning, but don't fret. One, we're recording this, and two, I'm going to show you a place where you can go at the end of the training for references and short videos to kind of give you comfort and let you keep practicing what you're learning today. So I'm seeing anywhere from 0s to 5s, some maybe a 6, a lot of 3s and 4s. So I think you're all in a really good place. And I'll say some of these things that I'm going to share with you today, I share with CEOs and CFOs, and they'll say, oh, can you stop for just a minute and go back and do that thing? So you're in a good spot. We've got some objectives, definitely hands-on. If you did not see it, I shared with Desiree and I shared with this class like an Excel workbook. So you can go and kind of practice with some fake data, different things, and we're going to kind of walk through those today. We're going to organize data using filters, so making your data easy to kind of filter and get quick answers for. We're going to do some drop-down menus. If you've ever had an experience where everyone uses a different naming convention for conferences, CONF, like we're going to have some solutions to help you get a little more consistency in your data. We're going to talk about sums and sum totals, so you can quickly again get to some data answers there. At times, it's also really good to have some notes in your Excel tools. So if Anna's going in and Desiree's going in and I'm going in, and we don't want to have to talk to each other in between every time we're going in and looking at data or an Excel spreadsheet, we'll have a couple different ways to add some comments into. And then this is not a comprehensive data suppression with all the answers, but definitely I want to give you all some opportunities. I know in your line of work, suppressing data has always been a key topic that comes up. So I'll give you some ideas depending on what your business case is for needing to hide and suppress data. We're going to lock some cells to make sure people don't go in after you finally have a really good number in a cell and they accidentally change it on you. And then we're just going to, at the very end, talk through how you can start to think about using AI when you're working in Excel. So, quick agenda. We're going to kind of go through what I just mentioned, but Excel is a powerful tool. It can also be overwhelming. But we're going to just kind of talk through each of these that I just went through. So, a couple of rules of engagement. We'll have a quick 5-minute break in the middle. So if you need to answer a quick call. We'll do 5 minutes, like right in the middle. We're here till 10:30. If you want to be on camera, I invite you to do that. If you need to take a break, I understand that. I know we have, I think, 85 people signed up today, so it might be a little overwhelming, so don't feel any pressure there. Use the chat. I've got the chat open. And Desiree and Anna, if you see any chat and you need to kind of give me the wave and we need to answer a question that's in there, definitely throw it into the chat. Safe and respectful environment. I do a lot of trainings and working with a lot of different groups. And if I say something in a way you don't understand it, just ask me to say it in a different way. I am sure I can say anything we're talking about in 3 or 4 or 5 different ways. And so if something's really confusing for you, probably other people on the call are finding the confusion too. And hands-on practice. So if you want to open up the Excel and kind of work along, your Excel workbook should be similar to the activities that we're doing. Hopefully the same, but very similar. So I'm going to go through this slide quickly, and then I'm going to move over to an Excel example. But when you're thinking about making friends with Excel, I'm just going to give kind of a quick demo to talk you through some of the functionalities of the toolbar, how to freeze things, how to use the F2 formula. And I'll probably show you another F4 formula while we're in there before we jump into some of the filtering with data. So we'll see how smoothly I can move back and forth here.
And Stacy, while you're switching over, would it be helpful for me to put that workbook Excel in the chat for folks in case they didn't have a chance to download ahead of time?
Sure, it should be on our.
Yeah, I've got it here, so I'll put it in there. Thank you.
Amazing, thank you. So I wanted to go over a few things. Have you ever had, we'll pretend like we've got, and all this is really fake data. I know sometimes it's tough to download this data because in the Health and Human Services, sometimes it thinks that these are real Social Security numbers and they were all completely made up. So if you're having a hard time, apologies, that may be the problem. But if you are trying to look and you want to see, you're looking at department, and I guess this department is sort of like personnel in this case. I'm not even going to try to spell it. We'll just keep it at department. And my spelling is much worse than my Excel skills. But you find yourself like rolling down and you're like, what was this again? And you can't remember what the top was. If you go into view and you see up on the top this freeze panes, you can freeze the panes and it'll kind of show you, if you can see, the top is blue and the left side is blue. If you click freeze panes, whatever cell you're in, everything above it and everything to the left of it remains frozen. So if I'm scrolling now, I can scroll and everything above Alan Adams stays put, it doesn't move. And if I scroll over to the right, you'll see that that date doesn't move. So the freeze panes can be really helpful when you've got a lot of data and you just want to keep that view of the top. And it's really easy to unfreeze if you're like, sometimes when I get in a hurry, I'm like, okay, I want to, freeze this data, and I click freeze pane, and then I was like, oh no, I meant to do it, one more down because I wanted this easy. Just unfreeze panes, and then nothing's frozen, and then whatever cell you start in, it's everything above it and everything to the left of it that freezes. So then sometimes you'll have a cell, I'm going to go into a different cell here. Sometimes you'll have something where you'll have a function in here. Maybe it's You're like, how did they get 1600? And well, you can go up here and you can always see in the function bar everything that goes into the data in that cell. So if you click F2, it'll highlight what's in that cell. So F2 is kind of a good friend. And we're going to get to sums in a little bit, but I'm going to do this kind of quickly. If you want this to equal all of the sum of everything above it, and then you wonder like, what's included in this sum? If I hit F2, it highlights right above everything that goes into that formula. So F2 is kind of a nice quick way to sort of see what's part of a formula. Another one that we'll kind of get into, but if you don't have this formula at the bottom and you're like, how much did we spend in office supplies down here? You can look at the very bottom right-hand corner and you'll see when you highlight numbers, you'll always get the average. Well, we know 400, that makes sense. How many? There were 5 if you count them 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then the sum is $2,000. So without having to do any filtering, creating any formulas, you've got kind of this cheat sheet down at the bottom. If I wanted to know in general, like how many, this is the average of all of those is 2,802. There were 22 items in here and the sum total was 61,650. So a lot of times you don't need to even go to the trouble of putting in any of the formulas. You can also lock a cell, and we might get to this a little later, but just in case we don't, if you're like, I don't want anyone changing these amounts because I don't want anyone accidentally changing them. If you go into the data, you right click, so take a right click, go down to format cell, and when you go to protection, you can make sure that that is locked. And so we'll see. And then you have to protect the worksheet. Sorry, we're getting a little ahead of ourselves. Maybe I should hold off on that one till we have a little more time at the end. The last thing I'm going to show you, and this can get really frustrating if you're not aware of this, and I know when I taught before, sometimes people would say, like for an expense category, maybe 80% of that expense category is charged to a different department. So you have 80% that's going to be charged to maybe a grant. And so you're like, okay, 80% of everything down here is charged to a grant. So I can say it equals, that's 1,600, and I'm going to multiply it by the 80% that that grant is paying for. And it's 1,280. And I think, okay, I just want to pull that all the way down. And you get all these zeros. Well, there's a function, F4. If you hover or highlight the G3 that we have here, the 80%, and you F4, it's freezing the G and it's freezing the number, the G3. So if I hit it again, it's freezing the 30, so it'll always be in the third row, but it isn't freezing the column that it's in. So the column will continue to move. If I hit F4 again, it's freezing G, so it's not going to move down this column, but it's always going to keep the G, it's going to keep the column, but it's going to keep moving. So I'm going to go back, well, that's where we started. So if I say 80%, the G has a $sign, and I'll get to the questions here in just a second. The G has a dollar sign and the 3 has a dollar sign. So now D3 is going to keep moving. We'll play this again. So now it's like I went 80% of all of this. If I pull this down, no, good enough. Now I see this is our original, and I'm going to hit the F2. We were taking 1,600 times the 80% that the grant is going to pay for this expense. Great. And now when I pulled that down, and if you hover over the corner and you left click, that's how you pull down these formulas and they autofill in here. Now you see we're going to do F2 again. So it moved from D3 to D4 because the D4 doesn't have nothing is frozen in that cell. So now I can just put 80% and I can pull that down, go to the next one, and it's taking this expense times the 80%. It makes it really, really nice if you're like, but the grant, what if the grant only paid 75 or 70%? Then it changed, I don't know if you could see that, but it changes all of your formulas down below just by changing one cell. Or the same goes if you accidentally have things frozen and you've ever done a workbook where you try to pull things down and you're like, oh my gosh, why am I getting such weird data? Look and see if there are dollar signs next to any of the cells in your formula. So I just wanted to kind of cover a few of the basic tips and tricks as we get started. And good question. When we were going down and saying, does the count capture all of the cells or just the cells with data in them? Right now it says 22. If we keep going, it is only counting the cells with data. So I think Allison, you asked that question. Let me go there.
And
Okay.
Stacy, I'm just gonna hop in and let folks know that have joined a couple minutes late that there's a Excel sample workbook in the chat if anyone wants to pull that up and play around with some of the things that you're showing us. That's available in the chat. And it was also in the portal, but it's in those two places so folks can find it.
Perfect. All right. Now I'm gonna go back to our presentation here as we get to looking at filtering data, and then I will go back to giving you a little tutorial. So kind of the way that I'm working this today is that I will kind of walk through why would you use a function like this, and then kind of going through an exercise of showing you how to actually do it. So if you filter data, sometimes you just have an immense amount of data and you just need to find 2 or 3 lines of data, but you just don't know even where to start, or you don't want to miss something that's out there. So the filtering function that we're going to talk about, really it allows you to isolate the specific data and focus on the relevant data so you can kind of hide everything else that is not that interesting or that you don't need to know. You can then analyze it a lot more quickly. So if you've got, I've seen, if you look at Excel, I think it goes over 1 million lines now. And so you can get a lot of data and it can get very overwhelming. And you're like, I only care about the bike helmet program. I don't need to look at everything else that this organization is doing all year. It also highlights errors. So it allows you to see misspellings when you're going through, and we're going to talk about the data, getting consistency in your data in the next activity. But sometimes you can over filter, and you inadvertently will clear out stuff that you didn't mean to. So with that, I am going to go back to our Excel, and I'm on the filtering data tab. So this is the filtering data if you want to kind of play along. some of the best practices that I have in here. So when you're filtering data and something, let me try to get back into this. Here we go. So when filtering data, you need headers. So if you don't have headers and you try to filter the data, you're going to end up inadvertently like hiding one of the rows of information that you need. So the first thing I say is make sure if this is your data, you've got descriptions at the top. I typically like to make that header a little bit different color so I know it's my header. So you can always go up here. I don't know if you're familiar with sort of this is for fonts and colors, but I'll just pick a background color that at least highlights that these are my headers and maybe put them in bold. So that way I know like, here are my headers, here's what I'm going to filter below. Then if you highlight the headers or the information that you want to filter and go up to the data tab, you'll see this little thing, it's a filter. And I mean, you think of when you put oil in your car, it's like bringing it all down to just what you need and right where you need it. So if you click on filter, then each of these headers has a little bit of a drop down little arrow. So it's the filter. So how many people are filter? Like yay, nay, like yes, you use filters a lot. Are you comfortable with filters? You can throw it in the chat. Great. So a lot of people know filters, know how to use them. We're going to go over a couple things. So when you see the arrows, some people rarely used it, but after someone else has created it, perfect. So you've got the drop downs and you're going to see the arrows. At this point, you can do a lot with it. So you've set your headers, put them a different color. You've gone up and you've selected the filter. You can go into these arrows if you click on them and you can sort A to Z. So if you see sorting A to Z, it should take all of this data. Everything will get sorted. It's not going to just sort that one. So sorting A to Z changes all of these around. If we saw before, we had cardiology at the bottom, but we want to put this in alphabetical order, A to Z. You can do it backwards. You can do it a lot of different ways. And then you can go in and say, I only care about cardiology. So this select menu allows you, if you click the arrow to deselect, then there's no data that would show. And you're like, I just care about cardiology. Well, maybe I care about cardiology and emergency room. So you can click on just the things that you care about, click OK. And now you've filtered, and you'll see on the left side that these turn blue because it's telling you that there are other rows of data that are hidden. So you'll know if you've filtered. And so let's say, okay, I filtered to cardiology and emergency room, and I just want to know about, I can go to the next expense category and say, I just want to know about staff training. Okay, so now I'm down to just one thing. But let's say like, oh, I got confused and I wanted staff training for everybody. Sometimes you can over filter. If you start here, it's just like that oil. It started up here and now it's moving its way through. So you've eliminated everything besides cardiology. When you click in, you can click in or you can just hover. If you hover, it'll show you that it says what it equals. So you don't even have to click in there. You're like, oh, this only has cardiology and emergency room. So I can click back in and it's not going to let me bring everything back because I've already filtered down. So if you get to the point where you're like, oh my gosh, this is driving me crazy. You may have 50 lines across the top. You can just click back on that row, click the filter again, and now you've just started over. So you're like, I don't know what I've done, but I just want to start over. So you start over, click filter again, and you can highlight just the headers, or you can just highlight that whole row if there's no other data in there. and it only filters the rows that have information. Just making sure, yeah, if things get really messy or if you've over filtered. But then it's nice to be able to say, I'm just interested in the administrative, what we spent at administrative office supplies. So you filter, you go to office supplies, you're like, I don't care about IT services right now. And then you can just add the two up, look at the bottom, you've got the sum total down there and the average.
Stacy,
Yes,
Allison has a question.
great.
Hey, Stacy. So I did the sort A to Z in the department column, and I'm just curious, is there an easy way to undo that? I've been like clicking through all the options, but when you just sort, you don't get that option to clear filter. Instead of like refreshing and starting over with the filters, is there just an easy way to undo that?
There are two things that you bring up, Allison. Thank you for those questions. Control Z, if you haven't used Control Z before, it just continues to take you back and undo and undo and undo till you're at the very beginning of everything that you've needed to undo. So Control Z is one way. There's not an easy way with the filter to take you back. But the other thing you have is version control. So if you haven't used version control before, you can usually type in the top and look for version history comes up. And if you click on version history, it'll also tell you the last time things were modified. So if you need to go back to what this looked like at 8:51 this morning, I can revert back and it'll have particular times that it is auto saving and allows you to go back in the history. But not an easy way to put the data back where it was once you start filtering. That's a really good. I might look that up while we take our short break too. So basically, can you reset data after filtering to where you started? And if you do want to go back to a different version, it'll usually make you save what you have and then save the version as a different name because it doesn't want you to inadvertently like lose everything that you worked on. And it's kind of does a lot of helping you not accidentally save over what you wish you hadn't. Does that help, Allison? Sorry, there wasn't a better answer.
No, that's helpful. Thank you.
All right, so filtering data, easy to get to data, helps you kind of quickly slice and dice it to get what you need. And then we're going to go ahead and I'll go back and we'll just kind of cover the slide quickly on drop down lists here. So I am a big advocate of clean data, as I'm sure most people are, but getting there can be really difficult. And creating data validation lists is one way to really help force people to pick for expenses. As you can see on this example, if you can, some people will put conference, CONF, other people will spell it out. General down here is misspelled. Somebody put conferences with lowercase. Like you can't really filter that data easily if you've got 6 different ways that, Anna and Desiree and I all, when we're putting our expenses in for general office supplies, we all have a different abbreviation or a different way of doing it. Then when whoever's in charge of all the expenses goes in and they try to filter or they try to get information, you're like, dang it, Stacy always misspells general, which probably is a reality. So we're going to talk about creating data lists that you can then do drop-down menus and force people to select something that's spelled properly that matches the expenses that you have, or whatever department, whatever that looks like, anything that you need clean data on, that people, you need uniformity around that data, data lists are a really good option. So these improve your ability to leverage and make better informed decisions once you've got that better data. So we're going to do that, and then we're going to just talk through putting it on, creating data lists on separate worksheets. So sometimes if the worksheet will kind of go through all of this together, but if you're like, well, I've got a worksheet, but I don't want these data lists kind of right next to me, as I build this all out, we're going to talk about how you can then put it on an input tab where you kind of capture all of those inputs that you're working on in one tool. So data lists, let's go back to the Excel here. So now it wants, it's all about my current version. So let's say we have, and I didn't actually, I should have had, if you're following along, I should have had some information in here. We'll just, let's see, expenses. So I'll just grab a couple of these. Now it's not letting me. Current version, sorry. I think I've messed something up with the version control. I might have to close this and get back in. All right. So I'm going to just pull some office supplies in here and put them over here. And, you know, like I said, we've got different people, different things that they're doing, and you're trying to solve the problem that you want to avoid this kind of issue. So when you create the drop-down menu, again, with the drop-down menu, put the header in. I always put like, maybe this is expense categories. And then you have, I think I already had it in there. So you want to put office supplies. You're like, okay, that's the one way. I want medical supplies in here. And I want cleaning services in here. Great. So I'm going to just eliminate this for now, because this is where, you know, if you were in your tool where people would use a drop-down menu. I also like to put maybe a line or two for other, because maybe I'm not completely sure what I want to put in there, but I want to hold a little bit of space. So I now know these are the only categories that Anna, Desiree, and I can use when we go to do our expense reports. And so I want to go into data. And if you go to data validation and click data validation here, you get a number of different options, but we're going to just go to list. We want to create a list. In here, you can type, you could type each of these office supplies, medical supplies, cleaning supplies. But then if you have to change it, you have to go back in. So you could do medical supplies, office supplies, cleaning supplies. I don't know what happened there. We'll just do that for now. And then in here, I have those three drop downs. I am not an advocate for doing it this way. And we found out when I worked with Department of Health and Human Services last summer that somebody had some weird things were happening because of the way that the data and numbers and things showed up when you tried to plug it in. And there's also a limit when you go to data validation and list. There's also a limit in here. An easier way to do it is select your source, and you can come in here and highlight the drop-down options, and it automatically puts the, as you can see, we talked earlier about the dollar signs. It puts in the dollar signs to say, no matter where this list goes, this is the category that we want, and click OK. And now you have all of these options available to you. And you can also then, like I said, left click on this side, pull this down, and now every single one of these is attached to those same options. So now when people go in, they can't accidentally misspell something, they can't choose something that's not available. And, you know, if Anna always puts a category that's not actually a category, and you're like, we have to stop doing this, well, now you have highlighted what people are able to use as a dropdown. One thing to note, so if I go back in and I say this other should be auto, and I come in here, auto is now an option. But if I need to go back, if I decided that auto should really be auto repair, I have to go back and reselect it if I change the name there. It's really easy though, if you've got a list and you're like, oh, we need to add a couple more to this list. It's easy to see them when they're in a list in my mind versus when they're up here, you know, in this source up here, and it can get really, really long, and then you run out right when you're almost done, then you've run out of characters and you can't do it. You can't finish it off. So I recommend doing this. And then I also, oftentimes I will create a tab if I'm working on lists and things like that, that is just a list or a tab just for inputs and data that I'm using in other parts of my tool. So if you just left click on at the bottom of any Excel tool, it creates a new blank sheet. You'll see sheet number 1 right here. If you right click and hit rename, we can type in inputs. So this is just any inputs I use in the course of this tool. I don't know what it didn't like there. Oh, I probably already have it somewhere else. Data inputs. So now I want to take this away, this drop down, and put it on this input so it's a little bit cleaner. I can highlight this, and there are some shortcut keys, but you can do this. I like to use Control X. So I'm going to put, actually, I'll just type it in the chat. Control X to cut, and then Control V to paste. So I'm going to take this whole category, Control X, because I don't want it in here. I do want it on the data tab, so Control V. And now I go back to my drop-down list, and we go back to the we still have it in here, even though it's on a different sheet. It's smart enough to know that this data validation has moved now to data inputs. And if I go and I double check it, I go back to our list, it has now added data inputs. So data inputs means it's looking at this new tab that we just did, and this range, which includes all of our categories. So it's a lot of detail. But the whole point is to help create consistency in your data. So just kind of in the chat, have you run across situations where people use different naming conventions for this same exact thing, or misspellings, or anytime, or even your own misspellings, as I couldn't spell personnel in front of everyone this morning, like your own shortcomings with being able to spell and have clear categories. All right, I'm gonna flash back to our presentation. Yeah, absolutely. Yes. Yeah. I mean, it's just really hard when you are free typing things to do it the same way. Or if you've got 6 different people who have to put information in to get them all to use the same naming convention. I think this is also a really good, from an efficiency perspective, if I go in and I'm doing expenses, I want to do them right. I just don't know how. But now you've been like, oh, these are your drop downs. Great. I know what I'm allowed to choose at this point. So that's incredibly helpful, not only for the person who has to use the data, but also the person who has to input the data. So if it's 2 different people, or even if it's yourself, I always say sometimes I save myself from myself. The next time I go back in, I remember like, what was it that I said I was going to put in for these expenses? And so you're able to do that. I mean, it's the same way with grants. If you're, keeping track of grants and everyone has a different abbreviation for them. Mackenzie, you raised your hand.
Yes, hi, thank you.
Hi.
I thought it was easier to ask verbally
Yeah.
instead of write it in the chat. Going back to the data validation, when you put it on the other sheet and then you come back and in the source tab, it shows like an exclamation point before the,
Yes.
what is that? What does that mean? In case, like sometimes I accidentally change the value of something and then I'm like, oh no, I need to add that special value. What does that mean?
That is just, that's a good, I can't give you a exact honest answer. But usually that comes after it identifies the tab that's being used, that exclamation point. So it's attached to like the data tab name. And so don't take it away. Don't take the exclamation point out. But I will see if I can find a better answer for you on that. That's a really good question. One thing I do like is when you are highlighting it yourself and letting Excel tell you what that formula is. In my mind, it's a lot better than trying to figure out how to type things in and what is it looking for. Because when you choose data list and you highlight what you want, it's now telling you, here's how that formula should go in.
Thank you.
But
That helps.
I'm curious about the exclamation point. And then is there a way to highlight and select one drop down for multiple cells versus clicking through each one? Oh, yeah. So let's go back to our lists here. So if we were, let me see if I answer this question right. So if we, let's say that I'm going to go back to that these are the only expense categories that we want to work on. I'm just going to go back to my filtering example. So I'm going to create a drop-down list here, for instance. I'm going to clear these out. Quickly do, here's our list. Choose our list. I'm going to click into the source and then highlight all of these. And it's telling me, okay, I've identified your source. Great. And then I'm going to pull this option down for everybody. Great. Now, I think let me know if this answers your question, Allison, that now I have office supplies and I know all of these are office supplies. Is that the question that you're asking? Okay. So let's say this is office supplies, but this is cleaning, but I know the next 4 are all medical supplies. You can highlight that and left click and just pull down that you know those are all medical supplies. You can also do a Control C. So you're copying that one and you can Control V and put it in here. If you try to type in here, it won't let you. The value doesn't match. So it stops you from freeform typing in here. So I didn't show that before. But yes, if you know you've got just a ton of medical supplies, you can absolutely do that. Or we're going to try this in real time here. If we go back to filter and we filter this and we know that everything in oncology is going to just be medical supplies, then you can filter and you should be able to pull this down while it's filtered and you've been able to fill in the medical supplies just for oncology.
And Stacy, if you pull that down while it's filtered, it will not affect the hidden cells, correct?
It should not. Let's choose oncology and cardiology. So we're going to test it in real time so everyone feels comfortable and confident. Let's say everything is cleaning supplies and general surgery. So we have administration, then we have general surgery here, and then we have more administration. So if we want to just filter, and what Allison was saying is that these are going to become hidden. So we know that if we just choose administration and we look to the left and they're blue, all of the rows 6 through 13 and 15 through 21 are hidden because you actually don't see those numbers over here. And so we want to make this auto, it's all auto repair. And if we pull down auto repair to line 4, 5, and 14, and then we unhide everything, it only did rows 1, 4, and 14. So it should not, it's always good to check, but it should not pull down hidden cells. Great question. I think that's been an improvement in Excel over the years. I think it used to be a little more willy-nilly about just then you open it up and everything had it that was hidden. Okay, let's go back. I think we might have a couple more and then we'll take a quick break. So we haven't talked about sums yet. We just came off of the list. In a previous. Oops. So for sums, I'm actually going to play a video that I've recorded because I want to give you an example of the videos. I've got 11. My company's Elevate 11, and coincidentally, I have 11 videos, not on purpose, but I'm very much a numbers person. And so I've got this video, and there's a video on every topic that we're covering that's on my website. They're like 3 to 5 minute video how-tos. So I'm going to play one for you so you can see like what the video literally walks you through. And then we'll probably do one more and take a break right at 10 for 5 minutes and then come back and talk data suppression. So I'm just going to play this video so you can get a sense of what other resources are out there for you. Hello. In this basic functions, we're going to talk about sum. Sum is a very handy and efficient formula or function in Excel that allows you to quickly create a total for a column of numbers. If, for example, we want to know what the sum of this is, we can use the sum function. One fun thing, if you're just looking for a quick look at sum, if you highlight all the numbers that you're interested in adding up, you can look at the very bottom and you see on the bottom right hand, you've got the average, you've got the number of items that are in that list, and then you have the sum total. If you would like to have a sum total inside your worksheet, your spreadsheet, I like to skip a line for best practice, and we'll get to that in some of our other sections. But type total, and then you can use this function button. Click on the function button. You can type in sum. You'll see all of the functions with sum are available, and there are quite a few, but we're going to just start with sum. Click OK. You can put in one number at a time, one cell at a time, or you can just click on the entire range that you want to add, and it will do it for you. So in this case, you see D3 with a colon to D20. It is going to automatically add everything within that range if there's a colon between it. So you can click OK. And now you have the sum of your column. If you need to, for instance, add another column, and you highlight the column, you click insert, and you needed another column that had responsible team on here, you can see that if we go back to total and we look up on our function line, Excel has automatically moved it from adding up rows or column D to adding up column E. All right. It's always weird to watch your own video. But I wanted you all to know that, if you go back and you're like, I want to do sums again and I can't quite remember, there's one on sum total, data validation, some data suppression, protecting worksheets, kind of across the board. And so I'll share the website and the Learning Hub with you at the end. But I wanted you to know that this is a lot. We are covering a lot today kind of quickly. And if these are all new things to you, it can feel really overwhelming. And I want you to know that there are other resources beyond just our meeting today. So we're going to do one more and then we'll take a quick break. Hello. Oops. So this one is, we're going to talk about some, but we're going to talk about, I think we'll move on to some sum totals where you can include or exclude lines. So I think, Allison, this kind of gets back to what you were asking. If you have hidden cells, when are they included in things? When are they not? When are they going to get overwritten if you're, pulling data down from one cell to the next and you've got things that are hidden behind? I think I'm going to go to this subtotal. This is Excel. There's just a lot to dig and look for. This is why I'm going to kind of show you a little bit with AI at the end, where you can ask AI, like, how do I create subtotals and exclude hidden rows? And it is very user-friendly in that way. If you've got Copilot, ChatGPT, Copilot's included with Office 365 most of the time, ChatGPT, but any other sort of AI, I ask it, such simple questions sometimes, and then I'll try what it spits out. So we're going to go through doing some subtotals, and if you do subtotals, you can exclude hidden rows. So you can include hidden rows, which we'll do first, and then we'll do an exclude hidden rows, and we'll try this. We'll try this out. Actually, I'm just going to play the video because it's so clear on the video, and I don't want to miss something because this is a little bit. So subtotals are you only care about what the administration's doing, or you only care about what the emergency room's doing in this case. So I'll go ahead and play this. It's about 3 minutes, and then we'll take questions and take a break. Now we're going to start putting a couple of things that we've talked about so far together. First of all, we want to be able to filter this data to start to look at subtotals. So as we did in the last section, highlight your headers. I like to bold them, maybe put a different background color to set them apart, then go to the data and hit filter. Now we can look at our data in different ways. If we want to just look at the emergency room, we can just select emergency room and see what happened in that department. We can go back and select them all. So subtotals come in handy when you want to be able to look at just emergency room and get a running subtotal for that department. So like we did in some, I like to skip a row and come down here and type in subtotal. We can go to our function and type in subtotal and click OK. Now here's where Excel gets a little bit tricky, and over to our right, I have a bit of a cheat sheet. We want to know what kind of function we want for subtotal. And over here, you can see in this second column, this function ignores hidden rows. That's what we want to do. We want to be able to hide everything except emergency room and see what that subtotal is. So we start with the number 109. And then this is our reference or the range that we want to add. So like we did before, we can go in and highlight this whole area and then click OK. So if you remember, and keep in mind, this is just a reference. If you remember, when we did sums, this was the sum of all of our accounts. You can see at the bottom, we see the average, the count number, and the sum. Now, if we just want emergency room, and we click emergency room, that subtotal changes and just gives us the emergency room. So if we want to know what did the emergency room and administration do during this time, we can click on those two and get that subtotal. So it's very important that you have this cheat sheet. I also have this cheat sheet in our training deck that you can refer to. But this allows you to remember, if you're using sum, to use 109 to indicate that you want to ignore hidden rows. Okay, so that's why I just played the video. There's just a lot there. And the 109, actually, when I started doing this, I had to do some digging to figure out how do you include or exclude. And so that's why I'm trying to show you using like the function, and I'll highlight this one more time. But when you're wanting to do something like that, to start with the function button. So this FX up here, when you click it, it opens up, and that says type a brief description of what you want to do. And you say subtotal, and you see I spell things wrong all the time, subtotal. And then it provides that for you. And that's where, if you have a special function in here, that's the cheat sheet that I provided. So I'm gonna pause there and see questions. I mean, have you used the subtotal before? Is the 109, like that whole idea, new? Have you used it? So as I'm glad it's new. Some people have seen it before. Great. Before we take just a quick 5-minute break, type in now or when you come back something so far today that you're like, this will be helpful. If there's something that really stands out, because as we put together, and I know we've got an evaluation at the end, but as we put together other trainings, just kind of wanting to know like what was most helpful or ahas that you had. But with that, I think we'll just take a quick 5-minute break, come back at 10:05, go get some coffee, stand up, and we'll see you back here in 5 minutes. Probably. Okay, so in our last 20 or so minutes together, we're going to talk about building notes in a worksheet and then ways that you can suppress data. We'll end with just kind of talking about how AI can be helpful. I'll show one quick demonstration, and then I'll give you a link, like I said, to my website, the Training Hub, so you can go in and if there are any of these videos that you want, they're all accessible there. So, building notes. So a lot of times, like I said, you'll have multiple people in one worksheet and you'll want to add notes, remember what you were thinking when you put data into a system. And so there are just two things I'm going to show you today, and the video takes you through a few more. But sometimes if I have like I'm building up a tool and I want to make sure that everyone knows, you know, for instance, for invoices, maybe I want to have notes after the invoices, but not everyone has to see them all the time. I can do insert and sometimes I'll just say like additional notes. And then you can, add notes as needed, or, add, you might say like, Desiree, take a look. And you have your notes kind of captured in here. If you don't want people to see these notes all the time, you don't want it to get in the way, you can go up here and click group. I really like doing the group. Click group. It'll just say this one group, and you'll see at the top, it created this plus minus, and I can just hide it. If I go in and I want to be like, what are all the notes? I can open them up, take a look at them, write notes back. But I'll do notes like that. Usually with the notes as well, I'll wrap the text. So if you ever are in a situation where you're typing and it just keeps going and you're like, I just want to keep it in this one cell. If you right click and you come up with format cell, you can go into the alignment and click wrap text. And so that way, it'll wrap it around. So it's not, but it'll also make your rows a bit bigger. So anyway, one idea, you can put notes in. I have another client and they're very big at putting in comments. So if you go in here and you're like, what was that $1,200? Steve Sanders had a $1,200 thing in here. You can click new comment. So if you go into the cell, click right click, hit format cell, or hit new comment, you can add a comment here. The nice thing about adding comments is I can, if I want Desiree to look at this, I can say at Desiree and her. Usually if it's within your own organization, then you'll get a pop-up with that person's email and contact, and you can stick at Desiree, and then she's going to get a note that says, oh, I need to look at this thing. This was for the team outing, whatever it was for. And if I click post, then when you come in, you'll see that there's a comment in here and you can hover. So you can easily hover. And then if, you're done, you're like, this is resolved. Everyone knows about it. You can click and it'll go away. So if the thread's resolved, then it shows that it's like grayed out. So just a nice, easy way also, if you're putting together any budgets, any numbers that you're like, I'm never going to remember why I did all of this. It's so nice and easy to be able to just right click, hit new comment, write the information. But if you add your note and you forget to post it, then nobody else is going to see it. So you just need to make sure you post your note. I say that because I do that frequently. I'll go in and I'll type all my notes and then realize like Desiree didn't even know I put her name in there. So those are just a couple of ways that you can go in and make notes, create a notes area so that things are in one tool. I think that's the thing that gets so difficult if there are multiple people working in one report and you're responsible for your area, but there's, your head of finance or finance analyst that has to come in and look through all of this. You want to make sure that they have answers that they need and you're not spending time like going back and forth and creating emails that you could probably answer in a comment. All right, so kind of getting into our data suppression. This is the one I'm going to talk about. Inserting. We're not going to play my video here. I just want to be able to, sorry, this is let you know that there are a lot of reasons for protecting the data, and I'm just going to walk you through them. But I've got 2 videos, and it'll tell you that the first one will kind of walk you through the first 3, and the last 2 are on the second video. And so again, if this is something that is really valuable, and you need ways of being able to do this, then I want you to be able to do that. And I'm just seeing, is there a way to wrap text to be the default for Excel? So before we move on, I'm just answering the question from the wrapping the text. So you want the whole file to wrap text, or is that?
Yeah. A lot
Go
of
ahead.
times I do like a lot of text in the
Mhm.
Excel files for like training or like evaluations. And so I was just curious if there was a way to set it up so like the default is when I open it that way. But it's not super important, so you can keep going. I've
Yep.
just tried to Google it endlessly and I cannot seem to figure it out. But
One thing that you could do is like left click in the top so it highlights the entire Excel, and then right click.
do the right click format cells.
Yeah, so that should answer it, and it should put it onto the entire, and if at the very end we can take a look at it if that does work.
Thanks, Stacy.
Sure. All right, so we're going to talk about different ways to suppress data. So in some of these cases, the data is going to be suppressed if you're just visually looking at it, but there are still ways to get at it. So there are very different levels of, I think, data suppression. And when you're thinking about privacy and how you are coming at things to make sure that you're not oversharing private information that you're not supposed to, I have at the bottom cautions for each of these to think about. And so I'm going to talk about hiding rows, columns, and cells, this weird number format where you use 3 semicolons to literally blank out information, ways to go in and protect the worksheet and encrypting a worksheet, and also being able to kind of go and find and replace sensitive data with different, XXX if you're going to be sharing it with other people. But when we talk about protecting workbooks, this is kind of my public service announcement. Like anything, if you're protecting a worksheet with password as your password, or you don't have a complex password, it's still only as good as the password. And if you're only protecting it to make sure that, it's not widely shared, you just need to make sure that you have a backup. Somebody knows what that password is, kind of as a succession plan, because if I have the file and I'm the only one who knows the password and I'm out sick for a week and you need to get into that file, that becomes a struggle. So that's my public service announcement. So we're going to kind of go through, and again, there are videos, 2 videos that kind of walk you through each of these. So if I go through these quickly, just please go and watch the videos. But for data suppression here, I'm going to actually delete my column and we'll work on data suppression. So the first is if I'm just presenting and, I'm in a presentation and none of you are going to get this information and I need to make sure I hide social security numbers, just the hide columns. So when you hide a column, you just right click and it gives you this hide and you can hide it. Everyone's going to know there's something hidden because it goes from C to E up here. And if you send me this file, I'm going to be able to immediately see that there's something hidden, and I'm going to be able to go in, highlight that hidden cell, right click and unhide and get the information. So if I were just presenting and this is the quickest and easiest way to be able to kind of hide information. You can hide also, like if the filtering allows you to hide some of the rows, but if you're like, any of this information below needs to be hidden, you can hide it. Again, tells you 13 to 31. So it's not protecting the data, but it's simply hiding it for a presentation. The next one's a really interesting one that I found when I went down trying to figure out suppression. So while we're doing this, I'm going to go back to view and freeze panes because it's going kind of all over the place. So there's just this crazy custom number. If you want to hide all these social security numbers and you don't want anyone to be able to see them, but you want them to know this is where social security goes, you can right click to format cells. And if you go up here to number and custom number, and you just put in 3 semicolons, okay, it hides everything. Actually, I hid social security numbers. It hides every bit of information, so they just blanks it out. However, it still shows up in the function bar. So the data is still visible, but if you were going to print this out, I was actually testing this out. If you were going to go and print this for a presentation, you've hidden all of that. So if you're going to print it or save it down as a PDF, it should hide all of the data that you need hidden if you were putting something together for a presentation. Again, the data isn't gone and it's still easy to find, but it gives you an option to weirdly go in. Again, I found this to format. I'll just do it one more time because it's a little strange. Format the custom number, and then you just put those 3 semicolons in. Has anyone used the 3 semicolons before? That one was very new to me when I started doing some digging of data suppression last summer. Love the semicolon, semicolon, semicolon. So again, this one is a nice one though. If you save it down as a PDF, you should be able to then share this out without having any of that. Again, I would test it. On printing, it worked. I was trying to test it out during our 5-minute break on a PDF. So the next one is password protecting. Let's just say you don't want anyone to be able to get into this report at all unless you give them the password and the protection. So if you go to review, there's a protect sheet button here. You can protect a sheet, which is just the data suppression tab, or you can protect the entire workbook. You got those 2 options. So if you click protect sheet, it's going to protect it's going to locked and unlocked. So any cells are going to be protected, and then you can click OK. And now you can't go in here and change anything. Like every single cell is protected, but people can still get in. If you go to protect workbook, you put in a password and you make sure that it's not just something super simple, then I can't even open this file anymore. So protecting the workbook makes it to where nobody else can open it without a password. Protecting the sheet makes it to where nobody else can adjust any of the data. But let's say you want to make sure people can still change their amount of their invoices. So now nothing's protected. You can go in and select any of the, like all the invoices, or you can select this whole column, sorry, and right click to format cells. And under protection, you unlock it. So now this isn't locked at all, and you click OK. Oh, to a merge cell, sorry. Let's just highlight these. And it said that because I was trying to take this cell, but this cell has been merged. So if you get that note, like can't do this, merge cells, make sure that you haven't done any, like I took A through F on row 1 here, and you can see that it's now one cell of its own. So if I go down here and just pick invoice amounts and I right click, format cell, and I unlock it again, okay. And now I go back to review and I protect this sheet. I'm protecting the locked and unlocked cells, okay. But it should still let me update the invoice. Birth dates? No. So I need to make sure if there's something I want to be able to keep working on or update, but everything else needs to not be touched, go in and unlock those cells first, and then protect the whole worksheet. The last thing I'll show you is redacting, like finding and replacing sensitive information. So if you wanted to, like Alan Adams, you wanted to make sure there was nothing that had Alan Adams' name on it, you can go up to find and select. But once you find and replace this, then it's going to be replaced forever. But if you go to replace and you say find Alan Adams and replace it with X's, replace all. Oh, sorry, I've got this protected. Let's try that one more time. So find and replace Alan Adams with X's. Then everything that had Alan's name in it is now just XXX. The problem is if you don't have this saved down somewhere else, then you can Control Z and go, undo what you just did. But once you save that down, it's saved down. So these are kind of cursory ways of starting to think of suppressing data depending on what your needs are. But given the fact that, we only have an hour and a half together, I just want you to know that you've got these resources, and I'm going to share where you can find those resources. But just to give you some ideas on how to use some data suppression. So first video, we'll talk about hiding columns using custom number formatting. And then that second video is going to take you through, we talked about locking, take you through the other things. We're going to talk, and then AI. So whirlwind here. Any questions though, data suppression, before I do just a quick AI look?
Stacy, just one quick question. So the find and replace function,
Yes.
once you've done that, aside from doing like the Control Z or the undo, Alan Adams is gone, right?
Yeah.
Is that correct? Okay.
But if you were, Allison, say, you've got everything that you've got your file that you work in, and you wanted to save a copy of that and then X out everything that had Alan Adams to share with somebody else,
Mhm.
that's a possibility, although that gets into, you know, a little messy with version control. Depends what your end use is for it. But if you need to share information or it's a monthly report that you're saving off, there are options to just quickly get rid of data or replace it with something else. But yes, it's
Thanks.
gone. All right. So I'm going to do a quick demo on AI, and let's hopefully it pops up here. My Copilot's a little slow this morning. So this is just Copilot that comes with my O365, my Office 365. And if I want to ask it, like, how do you suppress data in Excel? And it comes up with, not now. It'll come up with ideas for you. Or you're like, how do I quickly do a subtotal of cells? And it'll give you just quick answers. So if you haven't used AI kind of for the Excel piece, there are some really great things. I even use it to say, how do I look data up that is on a different tab? I don't know, like what question are you looking for? And it'll explain to you like VLOOKUPs where you can say, look up a value in another worksheet and then tell me what that value is. So if you haven't used AI and you're like, I don't even know where to begin with Excel, I find it to be a really good, it kind of gets my brain going. It can be simple questions, but also if I'm like, oh, yeah, that's exactly what I'm looking for, I can literally click copy and then paste it right into Excel. So I build a lot of tools for my clients, like a lot of budgeting and forecasting tools, and I'll get stuck on something. Like I got stuck the other day. I'm like, why isn't it returning a negative value? And I kept asking my AI until it gave me an option. And I was like, oh, there we go. It helps. So I just wanted to show quickly, like how quickly you can get some information that maybe you didn't know or kind of a starting point to be able to think about AI as sort of a tutorial partner to help you kind of think through. And I wanted to, I think if this hasn't been shared, I will share this right now in our, I don't know if I can actually do it, but I'll share it in the our chat. And yeah, there's a lot. Paige, I see mind is blown. There's a lot here, but I'm going to share this link, but you can just go to my website and there are all of these short videos. But I'll leave it here, and actually I'm going to make sure I can copy this right now and put it in here. So you can all go there, and I'm going to stop sharing because I know we're at our time, but I'm willing to stick around for a few minutes if you're like, I have a burning question that I just need answered. I can stick around for the next 5 or 10 minutes if anybody is got that burning Excel question that I can help you with. But I really appreciate everyone showing up. I know Excel can be a really overwhelming topic, but I hope that, and maybe as you're leaving, if there's something that you're like, I'm going to use this, I feel comfortable that I'm going to go try and use this and I didn't know about it before. I'd love to just kind of read through things as you're logging off, that would be awesome.
Thank you so much, Stacy. That was really, it's always good. I always enjoy your presentations. So thank you very much for being with us today.
And it's a lot.